He rules the world with a staff and a rod. We're a team, me and God. Good morning and good day, brothers and sisters. Want to take another look at Daniel 11. This is not going to be Daniel 11 Explained Part 2. Not yet. But I think I'm getting close to be able to doing that. But what I want to do in this lesson, it'll be fairly short, I want to address how all of this is going to go down. I'm talking about the time between the start of the 70th week up until the time of the first seal being loosed, when the antichrist shows up on the scene. So what that means is between the start of the 70th week of Daniel, because there's going to be a period of time, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, whatever you've got on your timeline. And the reason why we know the 70th week of Daniel does not begin at the loosing of the first seal is because once you have understanding of the 2,300 days prophecy, okay, yes, a day is made up of evenings and mornings, but I've proved in other videos that the 2,300 days prophecy is exactly that. It's a 2,300 day countdown beginning at the time that the first seal is loosed, and the true antichrist figure comes onto the scene, even though he is not truly possessed by the devil until the 5th and 6th seal. But having said that, this lesson we're going to look at Daniel chapter 11 verses 13 through 20, or 13 through 19. Daniel 11, 13 through 19. This is the period of 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it is, whatever you've got on your timeline. Basically, it's 2550 or 2555 minus 2,300 days, because that's how many days there are until Jesus, once the first seal is loosed. So what does that come out to? Around 250 days, 255 days, whatever you're using for a calendar year, 360 or 365. So somewhere around there, around 250 days, that's how long this period is going to last, between a Daniel 11:13, the beginning, can you see it here? Have your own Bibles open. The beginning of the 70th week of Daniel. And we go through all of this in 250 days until the Antichrist, the vile person, the one with who has sinister schemes, and he's the vile one. He has fierce features. I'm kind of rushing this video. I shouldn't, but I don't want this to be a long video. This is going to be a warm-up for when we really get into Psalm 83 here in the next few videos, and Jeremiah 46, and get a better understanding of the 70th week of Daniel, the entire chapter of Daniel 11. I want to keep this short, but again, we're going to look at verses 13 through 19. That 250 or 255 day period between the start of the 70th week and the Antichrist showing up on the scene when the first seal is loosed, even though he will not be possessed by the devil at that time. My best advice to you, brothers and sisters, stop thinking about this beast kingdom in reference to the start of the 70th week of Daniel. Stop thinking, picturing this 200 million man army going forth when you're thinking about the 70th week of Daniel and you've got your 70th week of Daniel goggles on. You're not going to see armies that size until the 6th trumpet. The siege of Jerusalem happens at that time as well. The 390 days, the first 390 days of the siege of Jerusalem occurs at the 6th trumpet. That's the length of the 6th trumpet. The length of the bowls of wrath are the remaining 40 days of the siege of Jerusalem. And then you also have the last 5 days where the enemy has broken through the gap in the iron wall that is going to be finished and around Jerusalem. And they're going to have 5 days of having their way with the women, with the people, with the houses, with the plundering inside of Jerusalem. And then 45 days after the blowing of the 7th trumpet, Jesus returns at the battle of the great day of God Almighty at the 7th bowl above the wedding hall. And he and his bride army, along with the angels of heaven, will arrive over Jerusalem that evening. Please see my other videos. But again, we're not talking about the entire 70th week here, just that 250 or 255 day period between Daniel 11:13 and Daniel 11:19. How is this all going to start? Once you realize that the king of the south is Egypt, it really starts coming together. Now, I need you to understand, brothers and sisters, that this caliphate leader is not the leader that will become the antichrist. As you read these verses, Daniel 11:13 through Daniel 11:19, you see that there's going to be two leaders prior to the antichrist leader in regards to the caliphate, who will eventually become a beast kingdom later on. And I'm going to tie this into some other videos I'll be doing over the next several days. I have a better understanding now of lining up Psalm 83 with the 5th and 6th seals, with Jeremiah 46 battle at the river Euphrates, and then moving into Ezekiel 38 and 39, and the 200 million man army going forth in the siege of Jerusalem. I'm going to tie all that in the next few days. But right now, that 255 day period between Daniel 13 and Daniel 20:21, when the Antichrist shows up on the scene. So now I do believe, I could be mistaken, obviously, brothers and sisters, but I do believe that the caliphate leader now we see leading ISIS, al-Baghdadi, who happens to be from the exact same place, supposedly, as the Bible, where the Bible says the Antichrist will come from. Maybe they're good friends, maybe they know each other, maybe the Antichrist is one of the smart guys working for al-Baghdadi right now. And I say these things not because I'm not having understanding. I just want to pretend that I do and maybe hope to write a book someday. That's not it, brothers and sisters. See my other videos. The Bible clearly states in Nahum chapter 1 that the Antichrist will come from ancient Nineveh, Mosul, Iraq. The Bible is very clear in chapter 1 of Nahum. But this leader, al-Baghdadi, does come from there. But I believe that he is the king that's mentioned here in verse 13 and 14 and all the way through to, through the next few verses. Then you're going to get another temporary leader for ISIS. Then you get the one that comes in peaceably, who's really smart, understands sinister schemes, who's vile, who sets up the Arab League of Nations that occurs at that time, and then they deal treacherously with Israel. Okay, but right now we're talking about al-Baghdadi. Now, am I saying that the 70th week of Daniel has begun? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm showing you in this lesson, in these, 7 verses, how this is going to begin. And once you understand that the king of the south is Egypt, and once you understand that the glorious land is Egypt, once you understand that, it really starts coming together. The whole kingdom. Again, we're talking about the kingdom of Egypt. Now, in case you didn't know, Egypt does not become part of the beast kingdom until Egypt's army is defeated at the time of the end, Daniel 11:40. That's the sacrifice at the great river Euphrates, Jeremiah 46. We'll talk more about that in the upcoming days. Egypt holds out. Now, are they working in conjunction with America? I would guess so, but I don't know that for a fact, but I would guess so. And of course, we just had that big, huge sale, or at least a deal of an upcoming sale to Egypt of more fighter jets. Now, Egypt's going to be taken over by the beast kingdom. Will those jets fall into the hands of the beast kingdom and be used against the world during the 6th trumpet? Absolutely. Because Egypt's going to fail, and they're going to fall hard. But it's not going to be until Daniel 11:40 through 45. After the 5th and 6th seals. After the first 5 trumpets. Then Egypt will finally be defeated. Now here what you have to start the 70th week of Daniel is you have the king, let's read it, for the king of the north, all right, This is al-Baghdadi, I believe. ISIS Confederation, again, not a beast kingdom yet, the most terrible of the nations, will return and muster a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come at the end of some years. Okay, he didn't attack them before, but now the king of the north now is being ruled by al-Baghdadi from ISIS. But it shall not be like former, and shall multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come at the end of some years with a great army and much equipment. This is how it's going to start. Couldn't tell you the year. Verse 14, now in those times many shall rise up against the king of the south. Many shall rise up against Egypt. Many shall rise up. We're talking about ISIS and factions that pledge their allegiance to ISIS. Maybe they haven't done it yet, but they will. Remember, we've already had ISIS doing things in Egypt, in the Sinai, in Libya. That's already begun. But is it the events that trigger the start of the 70th week? Has that begun yet? Well, let's read on. Verse 14, now in those times many shall rise up against the king of the south, Egypt, also violent men of your people. Remember, Gabriel's talking to Daniel, so this your people is Israel, and the violent men are the hard right, the hard far right, the hard right, let's go kill them all, leaders who are in Israel, okay, the violent men. I'm not saying they're wrong, but the Bible calls them here the violent men, men of war. Of your people Israel shall exalt themselves in fulfillment of the vision, but they shall fall. Now notice a couple things here. Are they attacking the king of the south, Egypt? No. They're watching the caliphate doing some serious damage. Not defeating, but they're doing some serious damage to Israel. Israel's getting nervous. Now, I do not know what year this is. I do not know what shape America is in. Is America trying to help Egypt and Israel at this point? Or, has the economy collapsed yet? I don't know. Are we at war with Russia? I don't know. But when you see ISIS attacking Egypt, the king of the south, which has already begun, but again, that does not mean the 70th week starts. Here's what I think triggers the 70th week start. It's when you see Israel, your people, exalting themselves. We're talking about the men of war, the violent men, in fulfillment of the vision, but they shall fall. Now, I need you to notice here in verse 14, it does not say fail. It says fall. The reason why I believe that it says, now I'm using the New King James Version, but the reason why I believe it says fall and not fail is because how does Israel attack? Using fighter jets. That's how they're going to attack ISIS. They're not going to send in 50,000 foot soldiers into the caliphate's strongholds, whether it's Sinai Peninsula, Egypt. They're going to be using planes, and these planes are going to be shot down. When you see Egypt's military, when you see Israel's Air Force really try to attack the caliphate, ISIS, due to the fact that they're really doing some damage to Egypt, the king of the south, and the response by Israel is to launch some serious air attacks against ISIS, and many, many fighter jets of Israel all get shot down, or the majority of them get shot down, and this bombing raid is not a success. In fact, you've lost a bunch of pilots, and they may be being held too, and tortured, and be beheaded. When you see this happen to Israel's Air Force, I believe that the 70th week has begun. ISIS doing damage to Egypt. Israel responds with some serious Air Force strikes, and many or all of Israel's Air Force planes get shot down, and maybe some of the pilots tortured, burned alive, or whatever. All right, now, again, that start of the 70th week of Daniel, which lasts around 250 days, will continue on until verse 20 and 21 when the Antichrist shows up on the scene, which is 2 leaders after al-Baghdadi. Now let's continue on. Verse 15, so the king of the north, this is ISIS Caliphate, shall come and build a siege mound and take a fortified city, and the forces of the south shall not withstand him. So right there tells you what country ISIS is going to build a siege mound around a fairly large city. It happens in the country of Egypt. The forces of the south shall not withstand him. Now, Egypt will eventually become part of the King of the South Confederation of Nations later on, when you're talking about around the time of the sixth seal, first trumpet, time of the end, Daniel 11:40. Okay, but here, I don't think there's a confederation going on. You may have America helping Egypt, but ISIS is literally going to build a siege mound around a city. Could be a major city. I'm not saying Cairo, but it could be a fairly major city inside of the King of the South country, which is Egypt. And the King of the South, Egypt, shall not withstand him. Even the choice troops of the King of the South, Egypt, shall have no strength to resist. Egypt has a pretty impressive army, navy, and air force. And they're going to lose a fortified city inside Egypt's borders. I'm not saying it's a huge, massive city, but it's a city. It's considered a fortified city. ISIS is going to kick Egypt's butt right after kicking Israel's air force behind. Excuse me for using butt talks. Are you with me, brothers and sisters? Israel Air Force is going to fall, not fail. They're going to be shot out of the sky, pilots taken prisoner and tortured, beheaded, maybe, who knows, drugged down the street. You're going to have ISIS literally building a siege mound around an Egyptian city, and Egypt's choice troops not being able to resist. When you see all these things going on, brothers and sisters, 70th week has begun. Verse 16, but he who comes against him shall do according to his own will, and no one shall stand against him. He shall stand in the glorious land, Egypt, with destruction in his power. Now, this is not when Egypt gets defeated. Jeremiah 46. That happens after the sixth seal blasphemies, around the time of the end. Okay, and then when Egypt's defeated and ISIS heads south in huge numbers, now at that time they'll have Jordan on their side, Saudi Arabia on their side. Believe it or not, of course, Jordan's going to go through some different leaders here very quickly. You'll see it. Lebanon, Gaza, all these countries march south to Egypt. They've already defeated their military by the river Euphrates, because Egypt and the Confederation of Nations from Africa went on the attack by the river Euphrates. That's later on. Don't confuse it with this time with that time. Here, ISIS is going to scare the entire world by looking like they're in charge to some degree in Egypt. Again, they haven't defeated Egypt's military, but they're holding a city. They're holding a city, and Egypt can't take it back from them. All right, that's right there. Now, verse 17, he shall set his face to enter the strength of his whole kingdom. So all of these ISIS leaders are going to be poised to take over Egypt, but it hasn't happened yet. And upright ones with him, thus he shall do, and he shall give the daughter of women to destroy it, but he shall not stand with him or before him. Or she shall not stand with him or before him. So it almost sounds like one of the ISIS, which we've already seen ISIS at work in Libya,
a lot of people in Libya and Tunisia to their side, and they're going to be causing lots of problems for Egypt. And this is under al-Baghdadi's leadership. Then he shall turn his face towards the fortress of his own land. Now we're talking about being back in northern Syria, northern Iraq. But he shall stumble and fall and not be found. Al-Baghdadi will be gone. Verse 20, there shall arise in his place one who imposes taxes on the glorious kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed. Well, are we talking about Egypt? I don't know. Glorious land is Egypt. The whole kingdom is ISIS. And there shall rise in his place one who imposes taxes on the glorious kingdom, not glorious land. And it's, you notice, small g and not big G. Do you know why it's small g? Because you're talking about ISIS, the caliphate, not Egypt, the glorious land. So ISIS gets a new leader here in verse 20. Are you with me, brothers and sisters? And then he doesn't last very long, but within a few days he shall be destroyed, but not in anger or in battle. So this leader who follows al-Baghdadi, he doesn't last long. He's taxing everybody to death in Iraq and Syria. They're not having it. Then comes the antichrist right here. He's going to come in peaceably. He's going to understand sinister schemes with fierce features. He's going to put together some type of a league of nations involving Jordan. Of course, Jordan's going to go through changes in leadership also. Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, even in Gaza Strip, maybe even parts of Syria. They're going to be forming a league and plotting against Israel. Okay, so we're not going to go any further in this lesson, but I wanted you to get a good idea of how this is all going to start, those 250 days before the first seal is opened. Remember, we're talking about Egypt. We're talking about ISIS tormenting them and taking a fortified city in Egypt. We're not talking about northern Syria or northern Iraq. Glorious land is Egypt. Glorious kingdom is ISIS, the caliphate. But I really do believe this is al-Baghdadi. So some people might say, well, brother, if you're right, then it has already started. No, because we're waiting on Israel's Air Force to make a bold move with a lot of aircraft, and the majority or all of them get shot down. And then ISIS really gets brave and actually puts a siege mound around one of Egypt's cities. How big the city is, I don't know. Brothers and sisters, I hope this lesson has been a blessing to you. I can't wait to move in over the next few days into the rest of Daniel 11 and really start looking at Psalm 83's alliances and how they plot against Israel. And then after the fifth seal blasphemies, what happens in regards to Egypt, king of the south, attacking the king of the north by the river Euphrates, Jeremiah 46. And then looking at the last few verses of Daniel 11, how we've got the big 6-trumpet, 200 million man army. Now the beast is truly a beast kingdom. And we'll look at that more in detail over the upcoming days. Stay tuned. Brothers and sisters, I'm not trying to sell anything. Don't plan on ever selling anything. Just enjoy studying Father's Word. And we're close, brothers and sisters. In fact, I saw in the news this morning that 5 volcanoes erupted pretty much at the same time in Indonesia. So I'm going to be studying more about that. 5 at one time in one country, that's pretty cool. Amen. Brothers and sisters, can't wait to see you next time. God bless.